And hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. And as always, thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoy the show. Well, I have a guest who has been here before that I'm thrilled has decided to come back and be with all of us today. Her name is Karen Isaacs. She's a theater critic and journalist with Shore Publications and Zip06.com. And Karen, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me back.
It's been too long. I know that my viewers will have missed you.
I would be delighted if they have. Yes, we were talking. It was during the pandemic was the last time I was here.
That's right, and we'll talk about that. But what I like to do at the beginning of the show, which we did last time, was talk about you and your background. Let's refresh the memory of the viewer.
I have been reviewing theater since the 80s. I have been going to theater since I was about 5 years old, maybe earlier. I love theater. I do some performing on my own, mainly cabaret-style performances. I've studied voice, etc., so I have a lot of background. I also teach literature at times, so I have a lot of background in that. So that sort of summarizes.
Did you think when you were young that you would be performing? You're mentioning singing. Did you think that you'd be an actor, a singer, anything?
I think like many people, I had the dream that I would be the next Julie Andrews or something. But I realized while I was in college that I didn't know whether I had the talent. But I also knew, but I did know I didn't really have such a passion that I'd be willing to sacrifice everything for a career in the arts. And I think you have to have that passion. You have to be willing to wait tables and do whatever and cope with periods of unemployment and all of that stuff. And I realized I didn't have that.
Theater has been a part of your life, as you've mentioned, really all of your life.
Yes.
What happened with regards to theater? You're going a lot, but when did the theater critic and the writing come about?
It came about back when I first started working on a newspaper. And that was back in the, I'll give away my age, but the late 60s. I probably didn't know what I was doing at the time. But then it developed more in the 80s that I started actually writing.
How did it come about from being in the world of attending theater and loving theater to writing? Were you a writer? I
was a writer. I had worked on a newspaper. I had had a career in public relations, so I was writing. I'd written all my life, so I was a writer. I had some background in journalism and attending theater since I was 5. I had developed a wide background and understanding and read widely. I didn't major in theater or anything like that, but I certainly had become very knowledgeable about theater.
Did you decide that you wanted to write about theater?
I'm not sure I made that conscious decision. I think it sort of came about because I was going to theater, and then when I married, my husband was a critic as well, and so we sort of evolved into writing together, or my filling in when he couldn't do something or wasn't interested in something. So it sort of developed that way.
Theater critic, people are probably wondering, oh, that's a wonderful title, that's wonderful that she does that, but what does it mean?
There are you can look at it two ways. There's a theater reviewer and a theater critic. I view my responsibility as a theater critic to bring my knowledge and help explain to other people why something is of interest or why it's valuable and how it is. I'm not there just to recite the plot, although I many times do summarize it, but it's to bring my perspective of how this production was put together and how effective it is. Not everyone is going to agree with me. I belong to a couple critic organizations, one in Connecticut, the Connecticut Critics Circle, and there are times when, you know, if I read 6 different reviews, there are 6 different opinions, from loving something to being very disappointed in it. So it is an opinion. I feel my job is to give the reader or the listener enough information that they can judge for themselves if they think they would enjoy this. It's sort of the way I look at movie reviews. I'll read a movie review and it may be a rave review, and I will get through saying, no, this isn't a movie for me. And on the other hand, the review that, yes, it's okay, and I'll look at it and say, yeah, I want to see that.
Now, I find you in my newspaper.
Right.
With a listing of the plays and just a basic footnote, if you will, and then I'll also find an article that's written by you with a full overview, etc. What are the differences?
One is a column, which is just basically a way of collecting news items and information and sharing it with the public. We developed that sort of so that the newspapers wouldn't get inundated with press releases that are very long, and so one of my jobs is to sort of condense those, pick out which ones are valuable and are interesting, which ones are most current, and putting them together. And the others are actual reviews of productions that I have seen, and I'm sharing information and opinions about them. And then I sometimes do larger feature stories that can vary. During the pandemic, I did several on what was going on, how theaters were coping, what they were anticipating.
Speaking of that, how are the theaters doing since the pandemic?
It is still a struggle. I think every arts organization is struggling, both in Connecticut and throughout the country, in terms of audiences and finances. You know, the pandemic recovery packages helped many theaters survive, and art museums and ballets and symphonies. Now they have to sort of go back to making it. And what I have heard is subscriptions in theaters are down substantially. And subscriptions, a good subscription base gives the theater some comfort in, this is what our budget is going to be, this is how much income we're taking in. And if that drops by 20%, that has an impact. My suspicion is that single ticket sales are also down some. I know one of the artistic directors said it could take 3 to 5 years for a full recovery. So we're only in year 2, maybe.
Right.
There are still people who are reluctant to go out to theaters or restaurants or symphony concerts. There are a lot of theaters in Connecticut are doing 1 or 2 performances during the run, which is where masks are required for those who would only feel comfortable then with that, with the entire audience masked. But it's going to be a challenge, and I can only hope that they all survive.
Have you found in your journey with theater and writing about it that you have come across individuals in the theaters that you are now friendly with?
I think that I don't have close friendships. There are certainly a number of theater people that I would call casual friends. I like them, we see each other, but there is a sort of a divide between a critic and the theater professionals. I don't think there's many super close friendships. It sort of becomes a little tricky. So that is something. But yeah, and certainly I've become friendly with a lot of the critics here in Connecticut through the organization. We, meet, we talk, we see each other at the theater often, regularly. So those are people that I have become friendly with.
Now, in our interview that I watched, you end up seeing performances before they are open to the public. Do you get invitations to go and see them?
That's partially correct, Deborah, and partially not.
Okay.
What happens is most theaters in Connecticut and in New York start performances before they invite the critics. Previews. They might be a day, 2 days, it might be a week. And then there is usually what is considered an official opening night, which is when the press can begin to attend. But yes, I get email invitations, and often, with dates or suggested dates that they would like us to attend. The same as in New York City. I get an invitation to a show in New York City from the public relations company saying we would like you to attend on, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at specific dates at whatever the time is. And then you respond and hopefully you can get the date.
Okay, let's hold that thought. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned into Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight. Both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back. Because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I hope you're enjoying the show. Well, Karen, we were just talking during the break about your blog. Tell us about it.
I started a number of years ago. I've forgotten. I think it was pre-pandemic. I sort of date everything by pre and post or during. Two on the Aisle .wordpress.com, and it's where I post all my reviews because the Shore Publications does not print all theaters in Connecticut. They ask for reviews from specific theaters. So I post all my reviews of whatever I see in Connecticut, as well as what I see in New York on Broadway or off Broadway. So that is a way you can get the full range of what I have seen in the next week. I have 6 reviews to finish and write and post. I'm not sure how many of I will get them all done, but it's how fast.
And in our last show, you had mentioned that you go to 60 to 80 performances a year. How many are you doing now?
I'm not I suspect it's closer to 80.
Okay.
And maybe more because, all of the Connecticut theaters are back. Some have cut back in the number of productions. Yale only did 4 productions this year. They used to do 6. But I see, I won't say every show in Connecticut, but a lot of them. And New York, I'm seeing more in New York. Again, not everything. I think at this, as I was explaining to you, the deadline to be eligible for all of the major theater awards from New York is in the spring, the end of April or so. And so lots of shows open then. right before that, so they'll be fresh in everybody's mind when you fill out those nomination ballots. If I wanted to see all of the shows opening, I would probably be in New York City 3 to 4 nights a week. I don't quite have the stamina for that.
Yeah.
Although this week I'm going to be in New York. I was in New York Sunday. I'm going to be in New York, and I'll be in New York 2 more times. And I will be seeing 2 shows in Connecticut as well.
Oh my goodness, how do you do it?
Naps.
Okay. So it does help to take a nap in between your writing and the driving and seeing the performances and socializing.
Yeah.
You're still able to have a private life.
Yes. This spring I've been I've booked off a number of days that are not theater possible because my youngest granddaughter will be graduating from college in May, and she's a star lacrosse player, but with the pandemic and an injury, she hadn't played much. And so I have booked off a number of days where I am going to see her play.
Oh, good.
Yeah, sort of the last time.
I think the viewer may not remember that you used to do radio. Tell us about that.
Yes, we did. My husband and I started on WNHU, the University of New Haven radio station, many, many years ago. First we started doing little 5-minute reviews. And then we ended up also doing a sort of DJ program of music of the 40s, 50s, Broadway, big band, all of that. I kept that up until, and I don't remember exactly when, maybe 2017, I'm not quite sure. At one point I stopped. It was becoming not fun. And since it was a volunteer activity,
Yes.
it was taking time, and I wasn't getting sort of the enjoyment that I had gotten out of doing it, so I stopped doing the radio.
You had mentioned in the last interview, and I mentioned that show a lot because it was so wonderful, and I wanted to get some background before we met again today, that you had mentored 2 individuals at that time through being a theater critic that they wanted to be it.
Yeah.
How does somebody become a theater critic?
There is no magic bullet, there's no magic path. You have to have an interest in theater, you have to have a desire to learn about theater, and you have to be able to write or speak about theater. And the Connecticut Critics Circle has, over the years, tried to mentor people. Some were college students, and now our mentorship program is sort of open to, not limited to college students. And we will help them learn some of the skills about what to look for and how to write it and how to present it.
What does the future look like for you? Will you continue on?
I will keep doing it as long as I am enjoying it.
Okay.
I think at a certain point in your life you realize if it's not something that you get pleasure out of, then it's not necessarily worth doing. This is not my full-time job. It's not my full salary. It's a little side hustle, and if I'm not enjoying it, I won't do it. But I still do enjoy it. I do become a little pickier on what I see and what I don't see, but it is still my
You
passion.
were mentioning before we started the show that you're teaching. Tell us about that.
I have taught for a long, long time at colleges, mainly as an adjunct, part-time. A variety of subjects, everything from journalism to speech to various communication subjects to English. And I still do that, and I operate that on the same principle, on the idea of, do I still enjoy it? Do I still get pleasure from working with the students? Do I still think I'm doing a good job? And if I answer yes to those, I sign up for another semester. So right now I am teaching one course in person, and I'm teaching some online. But I had taught online long before the pandemic, so I'm very comfortable with it.
How do you teach online? Are they all Zoom?
No, these are where the student works on their own. We don't have any meetings on Zoom. We usually what you do is you set up it as a weekly module with readings and assignments and maybe some videos. I've been known to make a little video or do an audio over a PowerPoint. I may find things out on the internet that I will post into the class. And then the student can work and do the reading and the work as it fits their schedule.
How is it that you are able to do everything in theater that you've mentioned and all of the teaching and still be able to function as a human being? Are you able to juggle it all?
Most of the time. There are times when it gets very stressful. And there are times when something can sort of upset the apple cart. Last fall, my sister-in-law passed away.
I'm sorry.
And my brother is older than I am. They didn't have children. So I had to step in to help, along with, we have some wonderful nieces who stepped in, who came from out of state to come in and stay with him for a week or so at a time and help him. But that made the fall very stressful because that took a lot of my time. I got behind on everything.
Did you?
Yes.
Well, family does matter.
And that was important. He needed that support. And I was happy to give it.
You had mentioned the Critics Circle. What is it, and how does somebody become part of it?
The Connecticut Critics Circle, and there is a website, ctcritics.org, is a association of, I think, about 20 of us who are critics in Connecticut. We talk among each other. We have a website that shows what we are seeing and what we are reviewing, and you can get the whole range of opinions, see 6 people's review of the same production and stories about it. We also run an awards program, which is going on, it started, I think, in 1990, where we give awards for outstanding productions and performances here in Connecticut. So if you are a critic, if you are someone who is in some form writing, then on the website is information of who to contact and what the requirements for membership are.
And so anybody can do that, or must they be a critic to be a part of it?
They have to be a critic, but it will give you what the criteria are. That has evolved as more and more of us are doing websites and blogs rather than being published in a newspaper. We're very lucky. Shore Publication has a commitment to the arts, and they still review the major theaters in Connecticut as well as local.
How does theater look like as we're going into 2023, 2024? Are you seeing things getting better?
I hope so. I think we are in a period of transition that after all that happened during the pandemic, and it wasn't just the pandemic, it was also all the social issues. Theaters are looking at what their mission should be, what their purpose should be, what they are, and they are trying to reach out to new audiences. I think there is a question as to whether it will be totally successful. And that balance of how people will respond. Hartford Stage this past year did a production that was in both Spanish and English. It had super titles, so you could follow no matter which language you were fluent in. I don't know how that went over. It was a very interesting piece. I didn't think it was totally successful, but I think it was very innovative, and we'll see how this evolves.
Well, I want to thank you. We have run out of time.
It's always a pleasure. Anytime, I'm delighted to come back.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You have been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. In case you'd like to volunteer for the program, I'd love to have you. Please contact me at artsandentertainment@mail.com. Well, I hope you have a super day today. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.